Now that you've created your plan for your mask, it's time to make it out of clay. I will be keeping my plan handy because I might need to refer to it for my notes on what I was doing and how I would be making those parts. Your teacher will be giving you a slab of clay to take back to your seat. So you will come over with your placemat like this, and we'll lay your slab on the placemat, and then you'll take it back to your seat like this. Okay. Now my example mask was made using this tracer. So the first thing I need to do is get my tracer laid on my slab so that I can cut out this shape. There's two tools that you could choose from to cut with. One is an opened paper clip, and the other is a strong toothpick. Either one will work fine. Keep in mind that I do want to actually cut this out. So when I put my tool in, I want to make sure that it's pushed down all the way to the table so that while I'm cutting, I am actually cutting the clay away in pieces. So I'm following the edge, just go slowly. Sometimes you'll have to get that extra clay off of the tip of your tool. And I can still feel that my toothpick is in fact touching the table. I know I am cutting clay and not just drawing into it. Again, there's some extra clay I need to get off. Cut this off up at the top. Now I can remove these extra pieces, and when I take my tracer off, I've got my mask shape, the outside shape of it. Don't take these scrap pieces of clay and crumple them together like you would ball up a piece of paper, please. These scraps are ones that you're going to be able to use to add some of the features that you've drawn into your mask. So keeping them like a slab might be very handy if you need to cut out some shapes, for example. So don't ball it up. Take your scraps, please put them in your clay container at your table. You can't leave them out in the air because they'll dry. Always keep the lid on this container until you're ready to get clay out of it. Now on your slab, you're going to need to smooth it a little bit, especially where you cut. It might look a little raggedy. So get a little bit of wetness on the tip of your finger from this little water bowl and just smooth the edges. Doesn't take a lot of water. If you add too much water, your clay is going to get muddy. Just a little, all along the edges. And if you have some ridges along the top of your slab, you can rub those out too. A wet finger works much better than a dry finger. Okay. Now I'm ready to start adding my features. Now notice on my example that I have actually cut some holes in my slab. I did that using a straw because I knew later on I was going to want to string some raffia through there. And I also intended later, when I take this home, to hang it up. So I put a hole at the top as well so that I could put yarn in when I paint this. So if you want holes in your clay, it has to be done now. You can't put holes in later. So in my plan, I can see that I planned for 4 holes down near the bottom. So I'll just show you a few of the features on my mask. I won't make the whole thing. So there's my 4 and 1 up at the top. If you do put holes in, please don't put the holes too close to the edge of your slab or it might tear through later. This extra clay in here, you can leave it in or you can squeeze some of it out. It doesn't really matter. Probably because of time, I would just leave it in there and leave it alone. So I see that I need to be able to make some coils for my example. So let me get some extra clay. I'll show you how to make a quick coil. A coil is a rope-like piece of clay. So I'll take this, and I always like to start off with a sphere. And if it feels a little dry, I can add a bit of water to it. Okay? Making a sphere is simply rolling it in between your palms to get it to be round. Okay? Now after I have a sphere, roughly a circle, I start to move my hands up and down to get it to look more like a log, like this. Now I can start rolling this on the table. I just wanted to get it about to this first. So I'm going to lay it down on my placemat, and I'm going to use my fingers, and I'm going to start to roll this. Now, I'm rolling it to make it look like a cylinder, but as I roll, I want it to get longer because this is too thick. The way to make it stretch out as you roll is to start with your fingers in the middle where your fingers are touching, and as you roll, you move your fingers apart. As your fingers move apart from one another on each hand, you can see how the coil gets longer. And I just do that until I get the coil into the desired thickness that I want. So now that this coil is my desired thickness, I want to add some water if I see any cracks on it, but I won't press too hard because I don't want to flatten it into a slab. I want to keep it rounded like a cylinder. This is a coil. Okay. Now I look at my plan and I see that I'm going to have a coil up here along the top and a coil for the nose. So I can use one of my tools to judge about how much I need to cut, and I'll trim the edge here. So here is one of the pieces I will use. That's going to go up here, according to my plan, like that for this coil. Unfortunately, I can't just press that coil in place and expect it to stay. It looks like it will stay. It's not falling off now, but when this dries, that will pop off and you won't have that feature anymore. So you have to do a method called slip and score when you're attaching two pieces of clay together. This tool is for scratching, but it's better for areas where you have to make big scratches. This is so small, it would be hard to use this to get scratches. So I'm going to use an opened paper clip, or you could use a toothpick again. And I'm just going to roughen up the surface of my coil. Nothing fancy, I just want to get it rough. And then I also know that I want to put that about right here. So I have to scratch this surface, but I also have to scratch this surface. Okay. That's going to help, those scratches are going to join these together better. But before I stick this in place, I do have to use some slip. This container has a mixture of clay and water called slip. It looks like gray yogurt. Think of it as glue for clay. You get some on your finger and put it on your scratches. I'm not rubbing it in. I don't want to rub my scratches away. Just kind of dabbing it in place. And it's better to use too much than too little. Okay? You can wipe your finger off on your placemat if you need to. Now this is ready to join here. So I press it in place. The scratches are coming together. And now I know that that piece is not going to fall off when this dries. I could do the same thing for the nose. I would trim this coil. I would do the scratch and attach to put that in place. As far as my eyes, on my plan I have them made as coils as well. If you would prefer to actually cut out the eye, if you want to be able to look through your mask and see through it, you can use your toothpick or your paper clip to actually cut the eye out if that's what you had planned. So just continue with what you planned for your coils and slabs and spheres and how you are using those forms to create your mask. Always remember to do the slip and score. Now as you're working, me and a partner will be coming around and asking you to pause your work for a moment so we can turn this over and put your initials on the back. The first letter of your first name and the first letter of your last name, and then also a teacher code. That's just for me, helping me when I'm firing your work. So we'll do that and then you can go right back to work. Your teacher will talk to you at the end of class about clay cleanup.